You're in the place where mysteries and the missing meet, where conspiracies lurk around every corner. Welcome to the Deep, Dark Truth.
Welcome back to the Deep, Dark Truth. I'm Moe.
I'm Chip. And I'm Mikey.
I was gonna do that.
Same page. That's good.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about two related but slightly different topics. First, the origins of Halloween and rituals associated with it, some that you may have participated in unknowingly, such as apple bobbing. And then we'll be discussing some rituals, recipes, and paranormal games from the internet that you might choose to play to get you in the spooky spirit.
Foreshadowing, are we including the recipe? Capital T, capital R, the recipe you sent? Keep listening, listeners.
Make sure you stay until the end for a very, very special recipe that I found on TikTok.
It's a good one, guys. I cannot recommend 10 out of 10. Wait, cannot recommend more. That's an important word.
We don't officially recommend that you play any of these games. We do not endorse them. You get a demon in your house, don't come to me. I don't want to hear it. You've been warned.
This is your warning. We do not support the demons except our own.
So some of these games will be lighthearted and fun, no-risk games like Charlie Charlie, and some may be an invitation to something more sinister.
Wait, isn't Charlie Charlie an invitation? Never mind. We'll get to it when we get to him.
We'll also be hearing from some listeners and reading some submissions concerning all things ghosts and ghouls. We are always accepting tips and submissions, no matter what time of the year it is, even if we have to save them for a future episode. We're also gearing up for listener-requested part 2, so submit anything you'd like us to cover or your own spooky submissions to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast at gmail.com, or call or text our tip line at 313-355-3411.
Give us the 411 on that 411.
You may be listening to this at some time other than Halloween, or you just want to skip to the Paranormal Games, and there'll be timestamps for that in the show notes. With that said, let's start talking about the origins of Halloween and some Halloween rituals.
Carved turnips. Whales. The country, not the animal.
So, Halloween, originally Samhain, was a Celtic pagan holiday that's pretty much always been held on October 31st. All Saints' Day, November 1st, was previously in May in the 300s, and then in the 800s, the church ended up moving All Saints' Day to November 1st in an effort to recruit people into Christianity. Both Samhain and All Saints' Day were about honoring their ancestors, and Samhain was very focused on the veil between the living and the dead being thinnest. As a result, the day before All Saints' Day was called All Hallows' Eve, which eventually converted to Halloween. So basically, they stole the holiday by
Classic.
making All Saints' Day on November 1st. Samhain became All Hallows' Eve, and then that interpretation of it eventually became Halloween. This was just like Ostara or Yule or...
Every Christian holiday. Literally everyone.
They moved them to coincide with pagan holidays so that if you were to convert, you wouldn't feel like you were losing anything. You can still honor your ancestors. You can still do all the things you were doing before, but now you're going to be celebrating All Saints' Day instead of Samhain.
And we're not gonna stab you. So, wouldn't you rather just keep celebrating your same holiday but say a different name?
I mean, yes, that's exactly what it is. The same thing with Yule or Ostara. We'll probably never do episodes on those holidays, so for those interested, Easter in particular, people ask all the time, why are there chickens and eggs and all of these things that are part of Easter when Easter is a celebration of the resurrection of Jesus? And that's because Eggs and chicks were associated with Ostara and Ostara customs. Same thing with Yule. It's the reason we have Christmas trees, for example, and we still have Yule logs. This moves us on to some different Halloween rituals. So some things, such as apple bobbing, are actually rituals or divination games, or whatever you want to call them, that were done during the Halloween season. For example, apple bobbing was a way for young girls and young women to divine who their future husbands would be. The apples each represented different potential suitors, and the one that was bitten would be the one that they would marry.
Did they, label them? Do you know how we determined which apple was who?
I really don't. I haven't seen anything about them doing it. If I had to guess, I would say that they probably carved names in them, because there's also a lot of apple carving rituals associated with different harvest festivals, like Wiccan tradition, for example. There is Lammas, and then there's Mabon, and then there's Samhain, Samhain being the third harvest festival, but all of them are harvest festivals. And Mabon in particular, there's apple carving is a part of a lot of the different traditions. You make these little shrunken heads. Anyways, it's not super important. But I would guess that they would have carved names into them or marked them somehow in that way.
Carve the initials on the bottom, and then...
Right. But I didn't actually find any documentation of how they chose which apple was which, but I could be wrong. Don't come for me.
We make no claims or representations about the knowledge we present here.
Costumes also are an obvious part of Halloween, and the origination of those costumes is that people would put on different disguises that were made out of straw or pelts, and they would dress up like the dead. Since the veil between the living and the dead was so thin, the idea was that if I look like a spirit or a ghost or a dead thing, the ghosts and spirits won't bother me, and it was as a deterrent. As the same with bonfires, which were also a part of Samhain tradition. You would light a bonfire to help ward off evil spirits. Throughout the night, they would keep the bonfire lit. Jack-o'-lanterns aren't quite as old as the origins of Samhain. The jack-o'-lantern originated from Irish myth that was about a man named Stingy Jack. So, in the legend, Stingy Jack invited the devil. This is the Christian devil, which is how you know it's not as old as Samhain. Stingy Jack invites the devil to have a drink with him, and Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, hence why he's stingy and how he got his name. So he tries to convince the devil to turn himself into a coin so that Jack could use that coin to buy the alcohol. And once the devil did, Jack decided that he was just gonna take the money and keep it instead of buying a drink. And then he...
Take the money and run.
And then he kept that money with a silver cross so that the devil couldn't change out of the coin form, which still doesn't quite make sense because as soon as he spends it, it's going to be away from the cross and the devil's going to get released anyway. So unless you're trying to trap the devil, I don't see the point in any of this, but fine. The story then goes on with Jack tricking the devil in various ways and basically blackmailing him into making all these promises. But because he did all of that, once Jack dies, God won't accept him into heaven, and the devil won't accept him into hell. So he's in a bit of a conundrum. So he's basically sent to Rome by himself, all alone, and he had only burning coal to light his way. Where did he get the coal? Where did it come from? I don't know. There's no answers. So Jack puts the coal into a carved out turnip, act as this kind of lantern, and that lantern is then seen with Jack roaming with it. Hence Jack of the Lantern, Jack O' Lantern. There's a much better explanation that's a little bit more long-winded. If you want to look at history.com, we'll put the links in the sources. But basically, the moral of the story is Jack done fucked up, and now he wanders the land with his jack-o'-lantern that is made out of a turnip. The turnips eventually turned into pumpkins, and I think there were various gourds.
New world squashes!
Yeah, there were various gourds before it was settled on pumpkin. I'm guessing that pumpkin ended up happening because they're so big and they're a lot funner to carve.
Delicious seeds and guts. I'm lost on this bit where God's like, no, I won't have you in heaven. He's been fucking with the devil. Is that not the best thing? We encourage people to say, devil, fuck you.
I mean, yeah, but also I think it was kind of unnecessary blackmail that he was doing for his own gain at all times. And so...
But, like, against Satan, is not all good in the face of evil. The ends justify the means.
Counterpoint, the devil is God's son. God still be man. The story's not even real, Chip.
You just thinking of Chuck.
We just, carve shit now. This is what happened.
I just like carving the pumpkin and then eating the seeds.
So that's the basics of some of our Halloween traditions and how they've evolved over time from their origin of Samhain.
Those are your classics. You've heard them before. You'll hear them again. Turnips.
The way that you say turnips for some reason feels sinister.
It's his soul coal trapped inside a turnip. How is it not sinister?
Alright, so I guess we should start talking about some paranormal games, because that's what the people are here for.
Give us the rituals! We want the rituals! Let me sell my soul!
So most of these rituals are newer rituals or ritual pastas, things that somehow were born out of a no-sleep Reddit at some point. But some of them have some origins that go pretty deep. Some of them as old as books themselves. So first we're going to talk about Charlie Charlie. Do you want to hang out with a demon or a dead child, depending on who you ask? Why does this sound like a sponsorship suddenly? Do you want to hang out with a demon or a dead child, depending on who you ask? If you think this sounds like a good time, get ready to play this Bloody Mary-like rendition of a Mexican pencil game called Juego de la Pecera. Charlie Charlie.
Carlos.
Exactly. We'll get to that in a second. Charlie
Oh, God.
is not Mexican. His name is Charlie. It is not Carlos. It is not Carlito. Also, obviously, this is some white people shit. Like, we all know it. Let's just accept it.
Brands of stupid ritual. Evil stupid ritual that's gonna get you killed.
This is actually a point of contention in popular culture that white people don't have culture. We do. It's dumb shit. This is what it is.
Our culture is potatoes and sacrificing yourself to Charlie Charlie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I agree.
Thank you.
If there's one thing this podcast can get behind.
So Charlie Charlie had an uprising in popularity in 2015, and in my opinion is a silly fun game that has no real risk or reward aside from giving yourself the heebie-jeebies and pissing off Pat Robertson, who has denounced this game. Pat Robertson, of course, from
Ooh.
what is it, EWTN, the evangelical guy on TV. That guy. You'll just piss that guy off.
I just did a 180 from this is stupid to I want to, just to piss off Pat Robertson.
Right? So this is how it works. Draw a line horizontally in the middle down a sheet of paper. Then draw a line vertically down the middle of the sheet of paper. You should now have 4 boxes in front of you. Write the word yes in the 2 boxes that are kitty corner from each other, and then no in the other 2. So it should say yes, no at the top, and then no, yes at the bottom. Got it? You get 2 pencils to act as your dowsing rods of sorts. In my opinion, you should use the exact same pencil and make sure that neither are sharpened so that they're the same weight and size and easy to balance. And obviously, if you sharpen a pencil all the way down to it being a nub and then you put it over another pencil, have some parameters.
You should use a what is it?
Ticonderoga.
A number 1 pencil for all your deep dark truth needs.
Yeah, we're endorsed by Ticonderoga because of this episode.
If we could get some of that pencil money.
So you're going to put a pencil down on the vertical line and the other crossed over it so that it's running against the horizontal line exactly in the middle. Ask, Charlie, Charlie, are you here? If the pencil moves to yes, you can ask to play with Charlie, and then you can continue to ask Charlie questions. Watching Charlie TikToks online is honestly like so much fun. My favorite is this kid who asks who did 9/11, and all of the answers in all of the boxes are Bush. The pencil doesn't even move, but it doesn't matter. It's the spirit of the thing, you know?
Charlie doesn't have to answer. It is known.
But yeah, I highly recommend watching people's TikToks, whatever the kids are doing these days. Just go look at that. Just Google it and...
Hello, fellow youths. How be your pencil rituals?
Youths.
What's up, my fellow kids?
You're a cop.
Ouch.
Moving right along to Red Book. Red Book sounds like an invention of the 60s or 70s by school children once you realize what it is, but the origins of Red Book are nearly as old as books themselves, most particularly the use of bibliomancy. Bibliomancy, aka libromancy, is a form of divination where you foretell the future by interpreting randomly chosen passages from a book. The Bible was especially chosen by many Christians. Oftentimes praying and fasting would be implemented before completing the ritual. And in some places throughout history, bibliomancy was even banned.
I was about to say, I like the dichotomy between do some Christian rituals, but don't you dare do rituals. Those are witchcraft, but they're Christian witchcraft, so this one's okay.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting because Christian witchcraft is a thing, and I don't think a lot of people realize that it's a thing, but there's so much Christian imagery throughout it that it's almost, they don't consider it witchcraft. Christians go to tarot readers and talk to people about spirit guides, but they're angel guides. And so it almost like it changes. It's like, this is okay because of this thing. In fact, there are lots of supernatural elements in the Bible because of the witch trials, a lot of things that were seen as folk magic or superstitions. Like folk magic, for the most part, in early days, a lot of it focused, aside from focusing around Sabbats and festivals, it focused on herbs and the use of those herbs in medicine. And so really, you can afford to piss off your local herbalist. It wasn't until people were able to see a physician on a more regular basis and more cities popped up and larger villages came to be that people could afford to get on their local herbalist's bad side. And then she was a witch, and they probably had her hung. Just lighthearted stuff over here.
That woman is too smart. She cured my boils. Let's murder her.
So, back on track. The ritual would proceed as follows. A book would be chosen based on intuition. Most especially, it would be a book that was felt to hold truth. Hence why Christians would choose the Bible. It was then balanced on its spine until it opened, and the person completing that ritual would close their eyes and choose a passage using their finger as one might use a planchet. If you think about the rarity of books throughout the ages, you can imagine that most of the time the same book would have been read repeatedly, causing the book to open automatically to favorite passages or quotes, or even to places where the pages had just been damaged. So to offset that complication, some would have a friend choose the page, or they would use dice as a way for the pages to be chosen more at random.
I appreciate accounting for this, because it feels like, well, if I just open this book a lot to this passage, then I can call my neighbors into thinking I'm good.
I think this is one of the real reasons the Bible was chosen so much, because the Bible at a point became the book. So even if your family was poor and didn't have money to just purchase books, you probably still had a Bible.
You can get access to this, even if your family doesn't own one, which they will. It's the book.
And over time, many different books that were thought to hold truth, like the I Ching, became favorites to use. And many variations on the foundations of bibliomancy became popular. So girls, and young women in particular, would try and employ bibliomancy to divine who their husbands would be.
Or at least that's what they told their fathers.
So show me a paranormal game or like some kind of form of divination that was not used by girls to find husbands, and I will show you a lack of thorough documentation, because that doesn't exist. For real, apple bobbing, like almost every game that I can think of. We talked about the mirror game in the last Rituals episode that we did last year as episode 3. If you want to go back and listen to it.
Shout out to Past Us.
Hey, Past Us. We're really sorry about your mic issues.
2020 is going to be a real ride.
Just hang in there, kids.
You got a big storm coming. The biggest single event in women's lives. Who's gonna be my next abuser or not abuser?
Am I gonna have to marry an old-ass man? I hope not, but let's try and find out.
Here's hoping for Hot Jimmy.
Hot Jimmy that every other girl in the village also wants to marry, because he's the only Hot Jimmy that hasn't lost his teeth yet.
Right, there's a reason he's called Hot Jimmy.
This is the point where my computer cut out and I lost Chip for a moment. Chip asked me not to cut it, so I'm not going to. This is also probably a good time to say that this episode ended up being 45-ish minutes, somewhere in there. So we are doing an all-listener episode next week, where all we'll be talking about is listener submissions from your spooky stories that you set into the tip line, our email, or called and left a voicemail about. So I guess let's go back to listening to Chip talk to himself.
You're gone. I miss you. I will ask a book. I don't know what book I would ask where your soul is. Harry Potter's out the window. I don't own any supernatural books. The TV show, obviously. Necronomicon, it's so stereotypical. Didn't Misha Collins' wife write a sex book? That's the book I would consult to try and attract your soul back. Future Moe, do not cut this. This is important information. This cannot be held back to just words of wisdom with Chip. This must be out to the wider public.
So this brings us to the Red Book game, which obviously employs some amount of bibliomancy. The Red Book game, also known as El Juego del Libro Rojo, is specifically like a Central American and South American thing, allegedly. Again, just like Charlie, I'm not saying any of this originated in Mexico, even if there is a Spanish name for it. We'll see. In this game, you need at least 2 people. You have a book. That book needs to be hardcover, and it needs to be read. Of course, you don't want any pictures or anything in the book, because if you point to something and it's a picture, it's a whole other thing.
Then you've summoned Satan. Good job.
Congratulations. And you need a red candle to light. So basically, you would light the candle, you would pass around the book, and you would ask aloud, "Red Book, may I enter your game?" With your eyes closed, you would point to a passage, and you would want to get an affirmative answer to that passage. You would continue passing it around until everyone in the circle, hopefully, can enter the game.
There's just that one guy in the circle who just keeps landing on like, hell no, get the fuck out.
Yeah, and then we make them leave. Once you're playing the game, you would ask the spirit or entity or powers that be or whatever floats your boat different questions using the same method to get responses. And then at the end, you would say, "Red Book, may I leave your game?" And you would have to pass around the book until everyone has been given permission to leave. There's, of course, always the warning, just like a Ouija board, you need permission to leave, you need to say goodbye, or otherwise there is a good chance that whatever entity would attach itself to you. Which I have to say, from many phone conversations of saying, "Oh, bye," it was, "Oh, okay, let me let you go. Okay, yeah, I'm just, okay, bye." That, the words goodbye have no real power over people. So I don't know why they would have any power over some demon ghost entity. No idea.
It's about respect. I'm showing respect to this demon, because if I don't, he's like, oh, you did not tell me to have a good day? I'm gonna make sure you have a bad day.
I said good day, sir! Just trying to
Slam the book closed.
Let me leave! I think so far, first of all, I played a version of this game as a kid. I don't know if anybody else played a version of this game as a kid. It didn't require a candle, and it didn't have to be a red book. It was very much like the origins of bibliomancy, where you chose a book at random and asked questions. There was no, can I enter your game? Can I leave your game? It was just asking questions to the book.
Yeah, I've done it, but it was just like, hey, I feel like opening this book, and bam. Oh, I'm not gonna have mac and cheese for dinner.
I feel like everything's gotten much more sinister. I blame Reddit. We were all just having a good time and lifting bitches with our fingertips. And then Reddit was like, don't, there's demons.
Where did you get that strength? Weren't you just complaining, was that on air or off air, about how back in your day, pre-internet, all these rituals were hard to come by, and they were like whispered in secret, you had to follow all the rules, and now just anyone and their mother can make dick juice.
I mean, yes, but that was more in terms of specifically, I'm a 90s kid, quotation marks, meaning I was a child in the 90s. A child. In the 90s, there was especially a resurgence of Wicca. Okay, so Wicca is a form of paganism, and it's very much a square rectangle type of thing. Paganism isn't Wicca, but Wicca is paganism. Paganism is like this overarching thing, and Wicca is an actual, like, religion, like, unto itself.
Paganism is an umbrella term, and Wicca is a sort of religion that falls under that umbrella term.
Right. And so, like, growing up in the 90s, there was this resurgence of Wicca instead of just traditional paganism or learning about different Celtic deities or folkloric magic. It was all focused on Wicca. So anytime you bought a book that was somewhat witchcrafty or had any of these kinds of rituals in it or was about various things, even books that were supposed to not have any affiliation with witchcraft at all, like Bloody Mary or something, they would all circle back to Wicca. I have no, like, issues especially with Wicca, except for Wicca is its own religion, and so there are certain rituals and things as a Wiccan, like observing different Esbats and Sabbats and this, that, the other thing, and how you should be doing everything. Let's say doing tarot. Like, maybe you should be invoking a circle and calling the quarters and going through this whole hour-long process to do tarot.
Highly structured.
Yeah, it was highly structured, and there was a lot of fear of, like, this is the way that you do it. And if you don't do it this way, that is very bad. I know that doesn't necessarily mean all Wiccans are like that, or all Wicca is like that, but just specifically in the 90s, there was a lot of that happening.
Moe growing up as a tiny spooky kid, reaching for whatever spooky book. Picture it. Michigan.
So, picture tiny spooky Moe and tiny spooky Mikey, and they just want to have a good time and read tarot cards and play with a Ouija board and have themselves a seance. And they can't do any of it because they don't know how to do any of it. They're scared to invoke demons. And so they're just at the occult shop. Let me set a scene for you. It's 2002. There's a creepy man.
Oh, God.
There's a creepy 50-year-old man with a beer gut sitting behind the cash register, and there's a sign that says, by the power of 3 times 3, shoplifters will be hexed. And you're just like, I'm not even here to shoplift, but I am scared to be in this store. I just came here to have a good time and raise the dead. I don't understand what the problem is.
Foundational in the development of Spooky Moe.
Yeah. And now for your listening pleasure, we are going to play you a recipe, kind of. This is a TikTok that I sent to Chip months ago. It's very important to us. Shout out to Bipolar Baddie on TikTok. We appreciate you more than you know.
More than you could ever know.
I know we always mark our podcast as explicit, but this is actually really explicit, so even the things you normally say around your children, you do not want them to hear this.
Love potion. Now, I get kind of a lot of questions about love magic. Like, how effective is it, and does it really work? The answer is yes, of course it works. How do you think I got my man by showing off my on the internet? Well, I did, but this is how I've made sure that he's gonna be on my face and no one else's for the rest of his life. Now, all you're going to need for this is some water, some glitter, a couple of heart-themed decorations, like I used some beads, and then about half a cup to a cup of his juice. Then add all those ingredients into a jar or a little jug like I used and mix it up really well. You want all these ingredients super integrated. Then seal the jar, and you need to seal it really tight. You do not want it to leak like you jokes you. Then you are all set. Just give it a little shake whenever you need some love.
That's the Bipolar Baddie. Baddie.
Go follow them on the TikTok. You kids like the TikToks, right? I know the truth. You've already moved on. They're trying to figure out how to monetize it. That means the kids are gone.
Do you just save a little semen at a time until you have like a cup to a cup and a half?
It's so much.
It's so much. That's enough to kill a man, is my official stance.
It's been a long night. He's not leaving you because he can't. He can't stand up.
Dehydrated, really. So dehydrated.
Remember to stay hydrated during your rituals. That's true for all rituals, listeners. I have one. Mo, pick me.
I pick you. You're the only one here that's not me.
Is Sirius in the room? So there's one that's... It's just a basic game. It's the Gambler. You're going to gamble with some magic. It's basically Satan. You're going to play a game of your choice, and if you win, you get like your hand. If you play a game of your choice against the Gambler, and if you lose, obviously he's gonna haunt you forever and eat your soul, blah blah blah. But if you win, you prick your finger on one of your hands, and that hand will always win every luck thing it ever does, every dice roll, every wheel spinning, etc., etc. So you just play, you choose your card game usually, but I want to know, can I choose a not card game? And you deal a random hand for the Gambler, and you just play as normal, and you're gonna lose because it's Satan. But I seem to recall a time you visited me, and we played Cards Against Humanity with the Gambler, and they won.
Listen, don't besmirch the name of Rando Cardassian ever again in my presence. Just because he is a ghost does not mean that he's the devil. He did win, like, every
Kicked
hand,
our asses.
though. So one time I went to go visit Chip, and me and Chip and my husband that exists, who knows if this is the first time
Spoilers.
he's been brought up, we all were playing Cards Against Humanity. Because there was only 3 of us, it was much more fun to do as Ka rules state and add a anonymous 4th person that is non-existent called Rando Cardassian. Cardassian? I don't know. It's unimportant.
I think we were pronouncing it Cartesian or something like that, but Star Trek has an influence on us, so...
I think we were saying Cardassian because of Star Trek. I don't quite remember. But the idea is that the random hand won the game, won all the time. Everyone was like, that's hilarious. There was obviously no rhyme or reason to it. There was no reason for the ghost to win, but he did.
But a lot of the time it was like, this card was like played to me. Like, this card was deliberately played to me. Which one? It must have been Mo. What do you mean it wasn't Mo? Musband? How did you? Oh god, it was the random card. How did you know, Rando?
Yeah, not only that, but it seemed like they were very geared towards the card. Like, they made sense. You know how in Cards Against Humanity where you don't have a name where it's like blank went to the store for blank. It would literally be like a name went to the store for milk that turned out to be semen. Like, it was so specific that you were like, there's no way that this could have happened. And yet it did. And that's why we won't play with Gambler. I refuse.
We will not disrespect Rando, and we will not lose our soul because we know better.
Until next time, I'm Mo.
I'm Chip.
Stay spooky.
You just listened to the Deep Dark Truth Podcast. See you next time. And remember, your local cryptids want to meet you.